What's going on, people? I would like to welcome all of you to another Q11 edition of the Talk to Q radio show. My name is Quincy, and this is my show. And with the Q11s, what I like to do is interview people to expose my audience to new things. I talk to authors, entrepreneurs, entertainers, counselors, other podcasters, and sometimes just your everyday person who just has something to say about a particular topic. So it's an opportunity for you to get to know these people up and close and learn their story. What sparked the passion to choose a certain career, or what inspired them to write that book? Or why is this person so opinionated about a particular topic? So just sit back and enjoy the show, and please be encouraged to share. A lot of my guests, much like myself, kind of do their thing by word of mouth. So the more that you share, like, or comment on a social media post, then the more you can help me grow the show. And it also gives more support to the people that I bring on the show who are looking to get their services, products, and talents out to the masses. So without further ado, let's get to the interview. My guest is a historian, an author, an activist, an independent hip hop artist, as well as a world traveler. From the Buckeye State of Ohio, please welcome Taye Uhuru to the Talk to Q radio show. Taye, how's it going, man?
Peace, King. All is well. I want to thank you so much for inviting me on your platform. It's truly an honor. How you feeling?
I'm feeling great. It's glad to have you here as well. All right, man. So like you're into a lot of different things, but what started first? Was it your love for genealogy and wanting to learn more about yourself? Did hip hop inspire you to learn about your roots? Or was it the world travel that you started that sparked the fuse that kind of ignited who you are today?
Ah, man, that's a good question. A lot of it started when I was young, and it started with my family. As far as the music, I grew up around a lot of music. My older brothers and my dad and my cousins that lived with us, it was a house full of boys and men, and they played a lot of records, had a lot of house parties. So I got a chance to listen to a lot of KRS and Rakim and Boogie Down Productions, Ice Cube, Scarface, Slick Rick, at an early age. A lot of my friends, they wasn't allowed to listen to stuff like that. So they got older, so I started off early in that respect. In terms of the black history, and the black nationalism, that's something that runs in my family as well. My great grandfather, he migrated to Cleveland from Atlanta, during the Great Migration. This was in the 1920s, and he
Hmm.
joined the UNIA. That's Marcus Garvey's organization. It's a Pan African organization. And my grandmother would tell me stories about him. She went to some of the meetings. She was a kid. She went to some of the parades and marches, and she would tell me about the red, black, and green flag. Different things that she remembered. So, I always admired African people and African history at an early age. That's what she told me. Her father said that we are Africans and we should go back to Africa. Different little small things like that. And then her son, which is my uncle, he started his own black nationalist organization in the city of Cleveland as well. And this was in the 1960s during the Black Power movement. And, although I wasn't around back then, my aunts and uncles and my mom, they would tell me different stories and different little things that my uncle was into and, how he loved black people and black history. And my mom, she was a bus driver. So she drove the Greyhound. So she would take us to trips in New York and Detroit and Cincinnati, places that was, within driving distance.
That's pretty cool, man. And I think there's such a disconnect these days between the younger generation and the older generation. But I don't think people pass on information like they once did. And I think it's great that your family, educated you on your roots like that. But as far as traveling goes, I like to travel. Okay. But
Oh,
my
yeah.
traveling is usually for relaxation and pleasure. You appear as if you travel with a purpose. Okay. How does a man from Cleveland, Ohio, wind up visiting around 70 countries? I mean, what drove you to see so much of the world, and what were you hoping to get from it when you first started?
Man, just wanting to learn more about my history, our history as a people, because we did so many great things outside of America, outside of Africa. You know what I'm saying? So I just wanted to tap into that. I was blessed with the opportunity. I got to study abroad in the Dominican Republic. That's in the Caribbean, 2014, and then in 2016, I got to study abroad in Brazil. That's another place where it's millions of black people. And they did amazing things. and they don't teach us about those things. So the more places I went, even in places like Europe and Asia, you'd be surprised black people changed the course of history.
Yeah. And I want to talk about, and I'll definitely get to South America, but I want to talk about Africa. Here in the United States, our view of Africa has been tainted by television and the movies. We tend to see impoverished areas of the country or images of the animal kingdom. I mean, we rarely see the beautiful cities that exist over there. I know you've been to many countries, um, many African countries. Can you explain some of the beautiful sights that you've seen in your African travels?
Oh yeah, man. Africa is the most beautiful place in the world. It's the most diverse continent. Africa has more countries than any other continent in the world. So a lot of times we generalize it as one place, but just imagine going from New York to LA, how different it is, or going from America to Mexico to Haiti to Canada. You know, the people look different, the food is different, the weather is different, different laws, different customs, but nevertheless, Africans are very friendly, very welcoming. The people are beautiful, they got the music, they got the culture, they got the animals. We know that some of the most beautiful beaches, and they have modern cities. You know what I'm saying? They got people driving BMWs and Bentleys and Benzes, people with iPhones. They got malls. The malls they got in South Africa, man, they look way better than the malls we have in Cleveland. You know what I'm saying? So
And I know people have always stated that there's somewhat of a rivalry between people from Africa and African Americans here in the United States, as if they don't really just mesh like they should. But from what I've heard from people who travel to Africa, like you said they're welcoming, they're inviting. It's like there doesn't appear to be any animosity at all towards Americans. So is that true? As far as excuse me, well, is that false as far as the rumors that Americans and Africans don't get along?
I definitely heard that before, that Africans don't like us, but just from my experience from being born and raised in America, um, you just look at a lot of the things that other groups of people had done to us, in terms of the police brutality and exploiting the black community, even things that we have done to ourselves. I've never experienced or heard someone say, I was minding my business and some Africans came up to me and they jumped me or they robbed me or they did a drive by on my house. Most Africans that come to America, they end up being very successful. They're very educated and they're very, very friendly people from my experience. And even visiting multiple, I've been to 15, 20 African countries. I've never met an African that was like, "Oh, we don't want Americans here. We don't like you." It's been the best hospitality that I've ever experienced in the world, and that's just a misconception. You know what I'm saying? And I
Yeah.
would say, if you do your research statistically, you will find that there are dozens of African countries that are far safer than the United States, far safer than some European countries, places like London. A place like Ghana, the crime rate is lower, the cost of living is lower, less gun violence, less mass shootings, less violent crimes. You know what I'm saying? So, you know.
Okay. Do you have a favorite country in Africa?
Nah, man, not yet. Because it's so many, it's so diverse. I like South Africa. South Africa is probably the most Western. It's Africa, nevertheless, but they watch MTV and BET, and like I said, they got iPhones and they got name brand clothes. They got all that stuff we got. You know what I'm saying? They got McDonald's and Pizza Hut. You know what I'm saying? So it's very, very, very Western, but it's still a very African place. I like Cape Verde. Cape Verde is on the west side. It's a tropical island. Ghana is amazing. The east side is cool too. Ethiopia, Madagascar, Seychelles. I could go on and on.
All right. And, when most people think about blackness, they think about Africa and they tend to forget about our brothers and sisters to the South. Now, when we were brought over as slaves, many of us got dropped off in South America. Um, and I know that racism is prevalent all over the world there as well, but also colorism. Based on your travels to
Mhm.
Brazil and the Dominican Republic and other countries in South America, is Black pride and unity embraced there, or is there infighting due to colorism?
It would depend on the country. So I could say like America, where we live at, is majority white, so it's more racism. With the lynchings and the police brutality, like actual killings. Then you go to maybe Dominican Republic, where most of the people are black, brown, mixed with black, what have you. It's more colorism, lighter versus darker. America, we have a little bit of colorism, but it's not as overt. You know what I'm saying? We had a team. People still talking about team light skin and team dark skin, but
Yeah,
when you go
yeah,
to places in the Caribbean, you have people that's actually bleaching their skin, or people don't want certain shades of other black people in their house or dating their daughters. You know what I'm saying? You don't hear that too much in the States. Brazil, it's a little bit more like racism, more segregation. So it may be a little bit closer to the States in that regard. But as far as the African pride, I would say from living in Brazil and studying in Brazil, Brazilians have more connection with their African ancestry and roots. They'll tell you like, oh, this dance comes from Africa, or this martial art is African, or this food is African. They give it up for Africa. Where in America, it's kind of like, I don't know. And our history just kind of starts with slavery. Brazil, they talk a little bit more about the African connection. Um, and places like Dominican Republic, they more so look towards Spain or the colonizers' history, as their own. They don't not all people, but there are a significant amount of people that may say, I'm not even black at all. I'm not African at all. And you have that everywhere. You have African Americans that do that. I'm not black. I'm not African. I'm Native American. I'm Hebrew. I'm Moor. Anything but an African. That's like the worst of the worst. So some things is everywhere, but then you see it more so than others in certain countries.
yeah. And it's so how can we get everyone on the same page? Because I mean, African Americans, Africans, Haitians, Dominicans, etc. I mean, we're all the same. We all come from the same place, despite our different accents and different languages. So, is education the key? Is trying to get more of this history into the school system? What is going to take to bring about more unity worldwide?
Yeah, I think that by me being a historian, I think learning the history is the biggest component because we have so many misconceptions. We've been brainwashed and lied to for so long. If we just do real research, and it's all around us, it's not hard to find. Like we got to go digging and digging because we got the internet now. You will see African history in Mexico, African history in Brazil and Haiti, Dominican Republic, America, all around the world. We got phones where we can look up anything we want, so we just have to take advantage. We can't put it in the hands of the schools or the school systems. Like in America, most of our teachers, they don't come from where we come from. They don't look like us, so we can't really reasonably expect them to teach us these things at this point. 50 years ago, my uncle and them, they didn't have the internet. They didn't have access to the libraries and books and different things like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, we have so much information at our fingertips now. It's not even funny. There's no excuse to not soak up some of this knowledge that's out there. And Chrissy chimed in from New York, and she talked about racism within her own community. She's talking about Hispanics for her. Uh, but let's shift gears and talk about your book. It's called The
Okay.
Afro Set, and it's based on the Afro Set Black Nationalist Party for Self Defense that was established in Cleveland in the mid '60s. Can you tell us about that group, the Nationalist
Yeah,
Party?
definitely, definitely. That's a group that my uncle organized. So it was a black nationalist group. They practiced self-defense. They would do military drills. They would go to the farm. They would train with the rifles, the machetes, the sticks. Um, it was a independently funded organization. So they would make dashikis and dresses and earrings and pottery and artwork, but it was Afrocentric, so they were at the forefront of introducing Black Americans to that African history, African culture, African language, African spirituality, African fashion, because like I say, 50 years ago, we really didn't have access to those things like we do now. So this organization, they had classes. They would teach economics. They would teach Swahili. They would teach about diabetes and sickle cell, drug awareness. They did a lot of community policing. When pimps and prostitutes came into the community, they would run them out. They would go in dope houses. They would run drug dealers out. They would stop robberies. They would look for missing kids. when the police came into the community and would harass people, they would confront them. So it's a very exciting book, a lot of shootouts, a lot of rebellions, a lot of amazing things that this organization did, not only in the city of Cleveland, but they went to different states and organized and opened up shops and worked with a lot of leaders that we know about.
All right. And speaking of some of those leaders, I know Jim Brown, who's a big time activist who spent a lot of time in the Ohio area. Was he affiliated with this group in any kind of way?
I wouldn't say he was affiliated, but he definitely, worked with him because it was around the same time. Like if you look, it's a famous picture of Jim Brown and Bill Russell and Muhammad Ali
Yeah,
and
and Lou
Carl
Alcindor.
Stokes. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Carl Stokes was the first black mayor ever elected in the United States, and he was from Cleveland. So he was like Barack Obama back then. So that's why all of those people came to Cleveland. That was
Okay.
very significant. Walter Beach is in the photo. So my uncle, he ran with a lot of those guys. It's in terms of Jim Brown and Walter Beach because they played for the Cleveland Browns, but they were
Yeah.
active in the community as well. They weren't just celebrities and superstars. They actually put money and used you know, their notoriety to make change.
Yeah. Man, you got a pretty cool uncle. I bet he has a ton of stories. Oh
Oh yeah,
man.
well he deceased, man. So I'm telling
Oh
his
man.
stories now, but he was cool. He was out of sight, man. He was a poet. He was a playwright. They opened up a theater. They would do fashion shows, musical performances. Yeah, he was an amazing dude for real.
That is great. And so why is this the Afro set not mentioned among the likes of the groups like the Black Panthers?
Well, in terms of Cleveland, the Afro set was a little bit more extreme than the Black Panthers per se. Like, did you see the movie The Black Judas and the Messiah?
Yeah.
So like kind of like some of the things that the Panthers was doing, like in terms of Fred Hampton, they would work with the whites, they would work with the Latinos, they would work with the Asians, they would work with different communities. But the Afro set was just strictly like African black. You know what I'm saying? So that was one of the main differences. So it didn't take hold as much because a lot of people were not as receptive to being called the African. They wasn't even comfortable calling themselves black at that time. You get what I'm saying? So it was like
Yeah.
African. Whoa, hold on, you going too far. You know what I'm saying? So it was kind of ahead of their time, but they were just as impactful as the Black Panthers, but they just didn't reach that level.
Okay. Well, hopefully your book can remedy that and people can and it can be more notoriety towards the group because it sounds like they did a lot of great things that need to be discussed. And
Yeah,
so
definitely.
let's talk about your music and then we'll go ahead and get ready to wrap things up. Now, as far as your music is concerned, you have a modern style, but your content has a throwback appeal to it. When I heard I think it's pronounced Sankofa. Is that how that song is
Oh
pronounced?
yeah, yeah, Sankofa.
Okay, so when I heard Sankofa, I was bobbing my head, I was vibing to it, it was nice. And then I heard Do Revolutionaries Go to Heaven? And it just took me back to, Chuck D and Public Enemy from my youth.
Oh
Um,
wow, that's a
so
compliment, man. Thank you.
yeah, yeah. And so who inspired you musically? I know you mentioned some people earlier you listened to, but did you have a favorite?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Like I said, the people I mentioned earlier, Scarface and Ice Cube and Chuck D and KRS and Rakim, it was at that time where being black was so cool, man. That was the best thing to be black and proud and African and yeah, X Clan. My favorite, I like
Yeah.
Tupac, Nas, those are my favorites, you know what I'm saying? And they kind of touch on those subjects as well, you know what I'm saying? So I try to make the music where people can receive it and like it, even if they're not on the black power tip, they could say, man, that's a good song. I like it where they can't even deny it. It's not like I'm really preaching it to them or, you know what I'm saying, forcing it on them, but they could just enjoy the song and think while they listening to it. Cause we got so much
Right.
other music where it's just bob your head and, not think about something.
Yeah, kind of mindless. And you mentioned X Clan, boy, you took me back with that one, boy.
Hmm.
Van Glorious. Boy, you took me
Yeah,
back with that.
it was
All right, so
hard.
yeah, yeah. Is it your goal to teach with your music as well as entertain? I mean, is that what you're ultimately trying to do?
Yeah, yeah, definitely at this point, you know what I'm saying? When I first started rapping, we was just rapping to have fun, just to make people, react to it. But now I want to kind of leave a message. I want to plant a seed in someone's mind, you know what I'm saying? Because I know it's the music is not that diverse on the
Yeah.
radio nowadays. Like I say, back then you had different groups. If you took X Clan and you took Rakim and KRS One and Big Daddy Kane, they all sounded different. You know, the music
Yeah.
now is like it's the same song all day, but it's just a different beat, a different person, but they kind of talking about the same stuff, man.
Pretty much. Pretty much. And I mean, now I know when I listen to your song, like the Revolutionaries Go to Heaven, and you mentioned some of the famous names of black people from the past, and like I said, that just took me back to Public Enemy because when I was younger, they would mention names. I was about probably 15 or 16 around the time they really started popping off, and they would mention names of black people that I'd never heard of because it wasn't taught in school, and I would go look these
Hmm.
names up to see who these people were. And so when I heard your music, it kind of put me back into that mode of, wow, here are these famous black people that a lot of people have never heard of, and we have this information in front of us. As far as Google, we can go in and find anything on anybody, and I just encourage people to do that when they listen to your music. Go out and Google some of these names and find out who these people are and what it means to you as a black person. So I think it's important and great that you've done this with your music, and the music sounds good on top of that. So I think it's kind
Thank
of
you,
a
thank you.
win-win.
I
And
appreciate that.
so when you look at all that you've done and maybe what you plan to do in the future, when you consider all of that, what's your ultimate goal? I mean, what do you want your legacy to be when you look back on all of this someday?
Man, I don't know. I just want to just try to educate as many people as I can and help people and give back. You know, I'm active socially in the community, man. I done volunteered at orphanages, community centers. I done participated in school fundraisers, back to school giveaways, Christmas giveaways, warm winter giveaways, giving away warm clothes, giving away food, trying to empower people. I co-founded a food co-op in 2016. I was the president for 3 or 4 years. My biggest thing is motivating people to learn their history, embrace their history, be proud of who they are, and help each other and give back.
All right. And I mean, I think all of that is great. And you also help people get to Africa themselves, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. I do educational tours, man. I done took middle school students, high school students, college students, adults, elders. You know what I'm saying? We go all year round. You could go any time of the year. They're all educational tours, but they're fun and exciting. Each tour is a totally different experience, man. You go to Egypt, we kind of focus on that ancient African history, 5,000 years ago, 10,000, 3,000, 2,000 years ago. Then we got the tour to Ghana and Senegal. Those are more based upon the transatlantic slave trade, the slave dungeons, the door of no return. We learn about that West African culture, because a lot of people looking for that closure because we really don't know what happened. And we still kind of in a state of healing. We know we haven't fully recovered. So for some people, that's a great experience. And, everything in between.
I think that's amazing, man. And so where can people get your book?
Okay, I got a website. It's campcleveland.org, campcleveland.org, and I have my book on there. I have my music on there. I have my educational tours to Africa. I do genealogy as well. I help people retrace their family roots. So I go back into the 1900s, the 1800s, the 1700s, the 1600s, and you find a lot of amazing things. Newspaper articles, census records, death certificates, marriage license, birth certificates. So everything that I do, everything that we spoke about, that's on my website, campcleveland.org. And I'm on social media as well. I got YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and I'm Camp Cleveland.
Camp Cleveland. Okay. Well, Taye, I appreciate you taking the time to join the show, man. It's been a pleasure speaking to you and learning, from you. And I mean, at the rate you're going, man, with all the things you're doing, your name could be in somebody's song lyrics someday in the future. So
Man,
that's that.
thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I think you're really blazing a trail there. And but before I let you go, I want you to set up a video for me that I'm about to play for everyone. I mentioned the song earlier, "Do Revolutionaries Go to Heaven?" I would like for you to introduce the song and just kind of talk about maybe your inspiration for doing it before I play it. And also, I want you to hang on the line and stay backstage for me while I close the show, and then I'll speak to you after the show. But yeah, if you can set this video up for me, man, and we'll shut the show down with the video.
Okay. All right, big shout out to Talk to Q Radio. You know, I want to thank you so much for just allowing me to come on your show. It's been an honor. The song "The Revolutionaries Go to Heaven," man, that's a song that I wrote and I recorded while I was living in South Africa, and this was in 2020, and this was during the height of the pandemic. You know, when everything was closing down, countries was closing their borders. I was blessed to live in a community in Johannesburg. It's called Mabonang. It's an art district. It's a very unique place. I've never been to a place like this, but every day, you know, you have artists that come from all over the city. You have painters, you have drummers, you have musicians, you have singers, you have rappers, you have producers, and they all come to this neighborhood and they showcase their talents. And a lot of them, they lived in my building. So, you know, although everything was shut down, I was still able to write and record and film my music video, you know, while despite the things that was going on in the world. So this is my video, "Do Revolutionaries Go to Heaven."
All right. With that being said, we'll go ahead and play that. Everyone take a check it out and enjoy it. Follow me on Instagram at TalkToQ. Go to TalkToQ.com. Here we go. "Do Revolutionaries Go to Heaven."
Dear God, I got one question. I need to know, do revolutionaries go to heaven? And if so, may their legacies last forever and their seeds grow. Tell them that we love them so and never let them die slow. It's like we cursed to be born black. We was kings and queens, now look where we at. I know it won't be long before we take it back. I just hope I live long enough to see it happen, and that's a fact. Cause one thing when you pro-black, you might love your people, but they may not love you back. For more than 400 years, we've been under attack. We survived slavery and then they gave us crack. Do revolutionaries go to heaven? 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 I wanna know. Do revolutionaries go to heaven? I hope so. Do revolutionaries go to heaven? I wanna know. Do revolutionaries go to heaven? I hope my mind runs 1,000,000 miles per hour. They can't stop me, they ain't got the power. If they put me in the ground, I still rise like a flower, higher than the Eiffel Tower. Ancestors give me power to devour each and every enemy and every doubt. It's for Fred Hampton, Mark Clark, Martin Luther King, and Rosa Parks, Bob Marley, and Peter Tosh, and all the slaves who had to run away in the dark. You in my heart. This for the lost martyrs, the Omar Majeeds and Bunchy Carters, and all the comrades that's locked away on false charges, and all the soldiers that fought regardless, and those who died in the freedom rides and long marches. Do revolutionaries go to heaven? 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 I wanna know. Do revolutionaries go to heaven? I hope so. Do revolutionaries go to heaven? I wanna know. Do revolutionaries go to heaven? I hope so.